Alright, so, where do we begin today? Well, today's topic is going to be, in terms of gaming, once again, we're going to deep dive into something that I'm sure a lot of you that are about as old as me, or slightly older, will remember this. A lot of mobile gaming pre iPhone and Android. I almost said cell phone, but you get my point. It's the same thing. Anyways, and maybe we'll dive in a little bit into some early Android iOS games. We'll dive deep into that as well. Maybe not too deep as much as we are going to be deep diving into a lot of 2000s mobile gaming, pretty much. So, with that said, this is the only part of gaming I haven't really talked about besides arcades because, quite frankly, that's been getting a lot of traction lately. But that's not the point. This is what we're going to be talking about. Mobile gaming, right? And this is this is going to be before Android and iOS, like I said earlier. Moving on. So, the most common one that a lot of mobile phones at the time had was the J2ME format or J2ME, which is the Java one that a lot of people my age or slightly older knew and most commonly had played. I know I had. I played some of them. I mean, there was that Tron one that I used to play a lot. Oh, that was fun. And in case you didn't know, the gameplay for the Tron one works. You're basically on those light cycles, and you would throw a disc or whatever it was, because it was based on Tron. That's all I knew because Tron Legacy was coming out at the time, so they had to put a Tron game for cell phones at the time, or for mobile phones at the time. So I love that one, right? And then there are some that I found to be interesting that I have not really played before, like I want to say Predator: The Duel, but I also want to say Alien vs. Predator: Requiem. Played that as well, and they were interesting for what they were. You know, like the fact that with Predator: The Duel, you just pretty much play as the Predator, but you also play as like a military guy called Duke, which not to be confused with Duke from G.I. Joe, but that's a different Duke. I think this Duke is supposed to be reminiscent of Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from the first Predator movie. I'm pretty sure. As for Alien vs. Predator Requiem, it's very top down, and you play as either the xenomorph or the Predator. And that was pretty cool. I got to admit that one. Hey, at least it's a better tie-in to the movie, or even if it's not tying into the movie, than the crappy PSP game for Alien vs. Predator Requiem. And it was garbo. I hated that one. Ugh. Ugh. I tried to apologize for it, but something would come out way later that is way better than that, and I'll get to that later. But anyways, speaking of Alien vs. Predator, let's move on to an operating system for mobile phones that we're going to move on to, shall we? Right. Brew. What does Brew stand for? Binary Response Environment for Wireless. That is what Brew stands for. And it was made by Qualcomm, and they had the goal to make a rap about it. And this was the only phone operating system or mobile phone operating system to have a rap marketing it. I'm not even kidding. Oh, but I'm not gonna elaborate further on that. But if you need more information about that, check out some videos talking about Brew, and you'll probably see why. But all you need to know was it was a cell phone. It was a mobile cell phone operating system at the time, in the mid 2000s, early mid to late 2000s. But nevertheless, you got some games that were capable of 3D because of this, like the BioShock port. Well, it was half of BioShock, but still the port nonetheless. The 3D one was so impressive. There was also a two-dimensional Java J2ME formatted version as well, but the 3D one was just as impressive, if not I'd say a little bit more, because you're taking something that was originally for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 on a phone, a cell phone, like that's about this big, about like it was this big at the time, and it would have a slidable keyboard that slides out the side, and you would just type. Anyway, nevertheless, it was a fun game to play. At least when you're on like a, I don't know, say if you got somewhere to go, or hell, when you're playing it at home and you're just enjoying yourself. And I say you're playing it at home as if you didn't have, I guess, say if you don't have an Xbox 360 and all you have is a mobile cell phone to play Bioshock at the time, you'd be satisfied enough. I mean, sure, it's half the game, but at least we were satisfied enough, right? Exactly. At least at the time. You would be at the time, quite frankly. But nevertheless, it's pretty fun. Another example is Devil May Cry, Dante X Virgil, or Dante Cross Virgil. Anyway, it is another interesting, it's not exactly port, as it is just kind of its own game that happens to play just like the console ones, but on a cell phone, or mobile phone at the time. And it was impressive. I loved playing it to death. I really did. I really enjoyed it. Because recently I started playing it, once I found it. It was just so, it was fun. Just like playing as Dante and like basically going slicing and dicing every demon with his sword. And his guns. Oh, just blasting and slicing demons in half, and it's just so fun. Fun to do. Because that's what you'd expect in Devil May Cry. Those, that don't know the series at this point. I mean, why haven't you? Oh, come on, what are you, living under a rock? Anyway, but nevertheless, that is that's it. Also, one of the only bosses that I've noticed in the game was the Cerberus boss from Devil May Cry 3. The one and only game I've pretty much played in the series. Seriously, I really want to play the other games in the series, but anyway. So I guess I technically played 2 games in the Devil May Cry series, so it's better than nothing. But nevertheless, I love it. It's fun. I highly recommend it. But I wouldn't. I don't know. It's hard to find somewhere. But all I'm just gonna say is, try your best to look for it. That's all I gotta say. Next up is a good one. A standalone Predator game called Predator: The Duel. Now, there's a 3D version and a 2D version, like I said, with Bioshock. And speaking of going back to Bioshock a little bit, the 2D version is also kind of impressive for a 2D game to kind of sort of have the same plot elements as the 360 version. But anyways, nevertheless, back to Predator: The Duel. So Predator: The Duel focuses on the Predator, right? Titular alien, species thing that goes around and hunts, because that's how the Predator works. But you also have this military guy, or marine guy, or whatever, called Duke. Now, that's not to be confused with Duke from G.I. Joe. He's a different Duke. I'm guessing he's supposed to be reminiscent of Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from the first Predator movie. But nevertheless, that's all I gotta say about that. Other than that, you're pretty much playing as a little bit as the Predator, but then you also swap to Duke, and then kind of not necessarily going back and forth, but you're kind of sort of playing a little bit as Predator and a little bit as Duke, and then the titular duel at the end, I guess. And I would say it's spoiler-y, but it's not really. And I don't think it's tying into any specific Predator movie. It was just its own game. But what does tie into a movie, though, however, on the other hand, is Aliens vs. Predator from 2004, which ties into the movie of the exact same name. Yep, I'm not joking. But unlike Predator: The Duel, where it was at least a third-person action-y kind of game, stealth action-y kind of game, shooter, usual stuff. With this one, it's a rail shooter. sort of like your Virtual Cops and Time Crisis and all that other stuff, but you're just some unnamed Marine, nor unspecified Marine, colonial Marine, shooting xenomorphs, but you occasionally shoot predators every now and again. Oh, and to specify, and in case anyone was wondering, the Predator in all the Predator movies are, the species name is Yautja. For those unaware of their species name, literally is named Yautja. I'm not even kidding. So I wanted to specify that. So you have a couple of xenomorphs and a couple of the Yautja species of other aliens or predator that you would have to kill or would have to shoot throughout the game, because after a certain point they start to like be as much of an abundance as the xenomorph or alien are in the game. So yeah. But for a tie-in to Alien vs. Predator in 2004, it sufficed because it was pretty good for what it was and impressive. I mean, hey, what can I say? Rail shooters, they are kind of fun when they want to be, and this one was no exception. It's pretty much fun to just blast some xenomorphs and then kill some Yautja as well. But it's because they were trying to kill us, to be fair. I mean, I'm sorry, this unnamed colonial Marine. Never mind. Anyway. So, yeah. Those are some examples of these brew games. Those are some examples of them. Now onto early Android. I'd say very, like, version 1.0 Android. Like, and also a bit of iPhone 3, iPhone 4. Basically, those mobile games were the last bastion of good mobile gaming, in my opinion. And I can't blame myself, because you have Alien vs. Predator Evolution as an example. And it was pretty fun. This was the game that, to me, felt better than that aforementioned shitty PSP game that claims it was tying into Alien vs. Predator Requiem, which it does, but it barely does, and is just as bad as the movie it was named after. Yeah, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem was not a good movie. No. But all I'll say is Alien vs. Predator Evolution, good game when it comes to both the Android and iOS versions. Very good. I recommend it. Now, these are a little more easier to find. With early Android games, it's slightly more easier to find, so if you could find them, go right on ahead. What's stopping you from doing that? I don't know, but go ahead and find it. When you can, at least. And trust me, it's fun. It's a blast to play. Another one that's also a pretty good one to play is Dead Space. Yup, a mobile phone version of Dead Space. Well, it's not version so much as it's a 1.5 that takes place after Dead Space 1, but before the events of Dead Space 2. It's pretty fun. I'm not going to spoil the plot or anything to those who haven't played it, but for those who did, you're gonna be fully knowledgeable on what's gonna happen in Dead Space 2 and thus what already happened in Dead Space 1. So you're already covered as far as that's concerned. So yeah, Dead Space 1.5 for Android and iOS. Pretty good game. Recommended. Highly recommended. And there's also Shadow Warrior for Android, which is a classic Redux package of Shadow Warrior, which I'm not really gonna explain any further. Just go watch someone else's video about Shadow Warrior if you need more detail on that game. But all I'll just say is, it's a great package of the game and its expansions. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And that's about it. Oh, and that delisted Godzilla game. That's a puzzle game, but I also really love it, so fun. Fun as hell to play. That's all I'm gonna say about that one. Not much to explain, other than go watch someone else to explain the game for you, I guess. But that's about it for mobile gaming in general. So those are my thoughts on mobile gaming before iOS and even slightly after the start of iOS. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think it should be? You think it should be really good and stay the way it is, or do you think that mobile gaming should just kind of go back to the way it was? Let me know. Let me know your personal thoughts in the comments. And yeah, that's it. Um, that's all I got to say about this. And yeah, doodles.